Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses.
Hi, Csenge. Good evening. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking time out for this.
Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
My pleasure, Csenge. Csenge, my first question, before I get into it, I had a look around on your website, and then there was another downloadable file that I found on another website. All those things were very helpful. I appreciate all the information that you have nicely structured. Sometimes it's very difficult to find information about people on the internet. Csenge, I see that you've got a very interesting name for your company. I'll let you say it when we get to it. But my first question is this: did you plan on becoming a coach, a cultural coach, or a intercultural coach while growing up? How much of it was planned, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so the short answer is no. I actually never planned this to happen.
Right.
I think you must get this answer a lot.
Yeah.
Because from what I know, so I'm in touch with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of intercultural trainers and coaches in my area. And most people are not really planning to get in this field, really. Actually, growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to be. So I think it's also a little bit of a classic story that, I always enjoyed learning things and studying and all that, but I had no idea absolutely what I wanted to do. I went to university. I also lived abroad briefly, and then I just worked in different areas. Really, I tried like leadership roles, but I also worked with leaders. And then I just really kept soul searching for quite a few years. And then it was, I think, around 8 years ago when all of a sudden it just kind of dawned on me that intercultural training could be an interesting field. Like, let's see what that is like. Let's see if it exists to start with. And then I just discovered that there's this whole world to it. And then, I just kind of found my calling really in this area. And then, I found my company called Cultural Origami.
Culture Origami. Beautiful name.
Thank you.
Chenga, I know you said it just dawned on you, but I'm not going to let you go.
Yeah, it was a little more elaborate than that, honestly. It wasn't just
Yeah, because when you have to talk about, cultural coaching or intercultural coaching, there must have been something, a little story at least, that must have led you to that idea. And, for you to think, okay, you know what? I think it's people need this. What exactly happened for you to think, people need intercultural coaching or, help with the cultural acclimatization?
so one of my clues, I think, that on this whole soul searching process was I lived abroad briefly in Belgium for a year when I was at university. And I mean, my main aim was really just to take a gap year and learn French and then go back home. But that year was really such a life-changing experience in hindsight, because I was living with a lot of international people from all over the place. Like my best friends that year were from, like one of them was from the Philippines, the other one was from Peru. And so, it just kind of really tickled my brain. It's like, how can it be that we are like seemingly so different? We are from different continents. And then, we just share so many stories, or even like so many, I don't know, ways of thinking. And it really, I think that was the year when just kind of propelled me to this direction. And to answer the other half of your question, so the thing that made me do this as a business was that when I decided to move abroad, I didn't really have any kind of preparation. And then, of course, when I made the move, all of a sudden, things were different. I faced a lot of culture shocks and, like this typical, misunderstandings or differences that I didn't expect to happen because I didn't know that they could happen. So that was, I think, one of the underlying things that just told me that, okay, this is something that actually can help people who are in a similar situation.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, you said, in 2016 is when your soul searching sort of, came to an end. Of course, it ended at the beginning of something that you're going to start, which is helping people with, culture coaching and stuff like that. But I mean, figuring out what you want to do is, yes, it's a big thing, and it's great that it happened to you. But once you figure it out, putting that into practice, or the next steps can be as challenging, if not more. So, how can you elaborate? Can you elaborately talk about what was your first step? Did you get a mentor for yourself, or did you attend a business program? How did you just start off? How did you find your first coaching assignment?
So actually, I didn't start that way. I kind of started to look into the field itself, and then I started to connect with people in the field. I actually found an organization which was for intercultural trainers and coaches, and I really just started first educating myself in the field. And it all started out as a side gig. So at that point, I just thought to myself, like, okay, let's just kind of find out how this whole thing works, and then I will think of the business part of it later. And so yeah, I got in touch with different people, with different training companies, and basically I found the first assignment that I had through a training company who were helping expats with the preparation before they move. And then yeah, they basically asked me to deliver trainings of that sort. So yeah, that was the first step. And then of course, when I started to think about turning this into a business, that was when I was actually started to think about, okay, maybe I should find a coach where I find some kind of knowledge on how to actually do business, because I know how to do training and I know how to do coaching and how to work on that side now. But then, okay, I also need to learn all these other things that are about how to build and how to run a business. So yeah, and then I was basically trying to find communities of other entrepreneurs, and I found one here in Madrid, and through that I also found a program that I first attended, and then after that I found another coaching group that I'm a member of to this day, which really helps me a lot with just really figuring out the business side of things, because that I don't think that comes automatically.
Got it, Chega. Chega, before I move on, in this topic, I want to take a step back, which I probably missed. Yes, you are an intercultural coach, but one of the key aspects to that is being fluent in more than one language, right? Because that kind of, makes the practical part easier. And I saw that, you're from Hungary, right? You're a native of
Yeah.
Hungary, and uh, French, and
Yes.
English. You speak it, you speak very fluently. And then the other language that you know is, I'm sorry, I missed the other language that you know.
Yeah, Spanish as well, because I actually currently
Spanish.
live in Spain.
Right. So, how much of this was before you got into intercultural training? I mean, did you pick up these languages because you wanted to get into something like that, or did these just become an advantage once you figured that you're going to become a coach in the cultural space?
This actually came before I moved into the field, because I always enjoyed learning languages, and especially at university when I started making friends from different places, I just
Right.
realized that speaking a different language also allows you to understand different cultures more. And so, yeah, I already entered the field with knowing these
Got it.
languages. Although I
When you
do
when you
think,
started to learn
yeah,
these languages, it was not with an agenda. You just learned it just out of your own interests and curiosity. That's about it.
yeah. I mean, I needed them for my university degree, but I
Right.
enjoyed doing that anyway. So it was more for my own
Got
benefit
it.
than for anything else.
Got it, Chenga. Great. So Hungary, French. Okay, I'm so sorry. The language in Hungary, I believe, is Hungarian, or is it
Yes,
called
that's
something else?
correct.
Okay, Hungarian. So
Hungarian.
you've got 4 languages under your belt: Hungarian, Spanish, French, and English. Are you learning any other? Are you
Not
adding
for
to
the
it?
moment.
Okay,
So I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I kind of enjoy speaking a language really well and then just maintaining that on that really good level, because that also takes some effort, because I wasn't born with these languages. So
got it.
I do enjoy having these for now, and then maybe at some point I'll learn something new. I haven't discarded that.
Got it. Great. Now, coming back to the point, when you said you started off by first educating yourself, finding, others doing something similar to what you intended to do. You said your first gig you found it through a training company that helped trainers and coaches with getting gigs. Now, how long did you take to, educate yourself? Or rather, I would rephrase it like this: how long did it take for you to feel confident enough to kind of, take up an assignment? And once you started searching, how long did it take for you to bag your first assignment?
It took a while because at first I felt very like I didn't really feel confident in my skills. So of course, I finished one certification program and then another, and then I just had this need for at least I think a year and a half or 2 years just to kind of really get into it. But in the meantime, as I was a part of that intercultural training group, like of course I spoke to other people. I also realized that I think that this was part of the process, that it's kind of a never-ending thing, that you always keep learning new things, and especially when it comes to culture and cultural differences, that's not something that's really static. So it did take me a couple of years to really feel confident enough in the materials that I do. Um, and I actually don't really remember when I got my first assignment, but it was around the same time when I started to feel confident. So it was I think at least a year or two to find that.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, when you say that, it took a year or two and then, you did a certification and another, what I want to ask you is, in the hindsight, when you're looking back, did you think you could have probably started a little earlier? Or, for those listening, is it going to take a year or two for everyone who starts off? Or would you have done any differently to decrease that 2 year period before you took your first assignment?
Hmm. I mean, I wouldn't do it differently because I kind of like the curve that I've been having, and it kind of suited my rhythm. Because as I was also working at the same time, I couldn't have done it at a different intensity. But I do think that when, like, for someone who's considering like putting together their own business, I do think that it's better to start with the assumption that it might take a while to really build things up and yeah, for things to take off. And then of course it always depends on the exact circumstances. Sometimes it takes a little less time, sometimes it takes a little more time. But I would say I advise to just have patience with yourself and with everything else.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, you said you did a couple of certifications before you took up your assignment. How much did the certifications themselves help you feel confident? Was it just that, or is there something else you tried? Like working with a couple of friends informally, or did you do a session or two for free before you really took up the assignment that the training company helped you with?
I actually did. I did find some voluntary assignments, and I also found an NGO here in Madrid who wanted a short training on this. I really was looking for opportunities to practice and also get more comfortable, and also get more comfortable in doing trainings in different languages, because I studied most of the things in English and I'm very comfortable with English, but then I also wanted to pick up the vocabulary in Spanish and then do some training in Spanish. So I did do some, so to say, quote unquote, practice work. But I think that was really like time well spent because it just built up my confidence. And I think also with the certifications, I think I managed to hit the right spot. So I do feel that I picked up enough theory. I also got certified in some tools that are very helpful and that make really my training practical for those who attend. So I do think that I managed to find a good balance. Where I was struggling a bit more when I already knew that I wanted to make this more than a side gig is to really learn about the how to do a business kind of part. So that's where I feel that probably I could have started a bit earlier looking into that. But I just had this idea in my head, that's like, okay, I know how to do training. Like probably when the time comes, like, I'll just figure everything out. And well, I did figure out, I'm still figuring things out. But at the same time, it's just knowledge that isn't really like, doesn't just come to you. So that part I could have started maybe earlier to look into.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, after your first session, that you kind of, did it as a practice or, like a voluntary kind of a session, what was your biggest takeaway after that? That was your first session. You said that gave you a lot of confidence. Apart from that, what was your biggest takeaway?
I think really for me, it's usually the confidence that I've been struggling with, and really just that feeling after that. It's like, oh my God, I really do know about these topics. I really can help people around these topics, and like I really have a lot of experience to share, which actually help them understand the cultural differences better. So I think that was a really empowering part of the experience.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, please don't mind me. I'm still going to dig a little deeper here because I think
Yeah,
it can
sure.
help people who are listening. When you said, after the practice session, it made you feel, oh, yeah, I can do this. So, what was it that you thought to yourself? Although that wasn't the case, but then you thought to yourself that was probably keeping you from going out there. You thought maybe I'm not good at this, maybe I'm not good at that. What was it that kind of got clarified after the practice session?
Um, that's a very good question. I mean, I think I did have a lot of these, limiting beliefs that like what I know and what I have to share is like not really enough, or nobody will be interested, or it won't be helpful. And it was more to kind of try to work through this kind of limiting beliefs, really, and just really shift this mindset from like, okay, just like I'm just, person here trying to do this, really realizing that I do have something to share, and it is something I'm good at, and it is something that I can do and I'm prepared to do because I've been practicing for this. So I think it really is like the hardest part to get through, at least for me, was really getting to this different mindset, I would say.
Got it, Chenga. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're saying the practice session that you did for a group of volunteers really helped you overcome that limiting belief.
Yes,
Is that
yes.
right?
Yes, but I mean, it's also because we learn differently. And for me, I really learn a lot from practice and from doing things. So that was actually the time, like when I started doing these, that's when I really like learned and tapped into what I can do. But I mean, I can imagine that, of course, since we all absorb information differently and we all process it differently, like for some people already, maybe with, doing a couple of courses or getting some more knowledge, like this confidence can already come.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, you said you didn't take a complete, you didn't do a complete transition immediately. You started off taking this up as a side gig, and then, you slowly transitioned. Can you talk us through the transition? When was it that finally you felt comfortable to take this up full time from your existing job? How long did it take after your first training gig that you took up?
Oof, it took still quite a few years. Um, yeah, I mean, I actually fully started doing this only early last year. But I think, as I said, like for me, it really was this mindset shift. So like for a very long time, I was very insecure about like also the financial part, because of course, like when you join, like when you become an entrepreneur, like you kind of have to be comfortable with knowing that you won't have a paycheck every month. So that was something that generated a lot of anxiety. I also enjoyed my jobs that I was working in. So that was also a little bit a part of the, oh yeah, but, I would leave them and then I wouldn't be doing that. So there were also some uncertainty around that. But I think really also just like, I don't know, at some point I just came to this like realization that, okay, this is not something that will happen when the time is right, because the time will never be right. I won't really come to that moment when I just feel that, oh, okay, like this is the moment to quit and this is the moment to do this. So, so realizing this actually just made me really get a little, well, so to say, faster. I don't think I was really fast in this whole transition process, because I mean, I tend to be a bit slow with my decisions in general. But I think just realizing this, that the perfect timing doesn't exist, I think that was what actually like sped me up a little bit more.
Got it, Chenga. Also, I don't think it helps that you're a perfectionist.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, I had this for a long time that, like, oh yeah, I want to know more. I want to have a website before I, launch my business. I want to know still this and have that. And at some point I just realized, yeah, I cannot have everything ready at the same time. So yeah, it did not help for sure.
Got it, Chenga. So, Chenga, you thanks first of all so much for sharing a lot of things candidly. You said you kind of said that yes, it did take more time. Was it did it frustrate you at some point that I'm just dragging this, and then was it a positive emotion that kind of took you to to leave whatever you're doing and start this full time? What was that final push? Was it frustration? Was it some sort of a positive self belief? Or, was it a third person coming and giving you something else? Or was it a project that really went well? Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I did have a lot of frustration around this, because especially like, when you connect with other people who are doing what you want to do in the format you think you want to do, it just like sometimes gets very frustrating to see that, oh, they're already doing it and they can do this. And I just don't feel that I'm there yet. So there was a lot of this kind of frustration, especially at the beginning. But then I also, like with this mindset shift, I also started to think, okay, like it's not really fair, well, neither for me nor for others, to just compare, because it's really such a different journey for all of us that yeah, it just kills the joy of it, really. And interestingly enough, so what actually kind of sped up the process was more just seeing different world events. I mean, I wouldn't want to get too much into politics, but just like seeing, all this like different wars starting all over and these global conflicts, I think that was kind of at some point that started triggering me that, okay, like there are so many changes, so many things can shift, things can happen really fast, or changes can happen really fast. So I just all of a sudden felt not really an urgency, but I just felt that, okay, I really want to do this. There's no better time than the present. Let's just see what happens, and then if worst comes to worst, I can always go back to a different something. So I think it was more observing that and coming to this realization that, okay, I can't just keep waiting for the best moment to come, because it just won't come, and then life is passing by and who knows what is going to happen. I think that was really this like sudden thought that made me just think, okay, I want to do this.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, you also spoke about the financial uncertainty and how that can sometimes hinder in whatever your goals are. So how did you deal with that? Did you save enough money for a certain amount of time? Did you give yourself, what, I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm going to take 6 months, 12 months. I've got the money and then I'm going to try. Is that the approach you took? Or you thought, what, let's just see after we get into it? So what was your approach like?
Yes, exactly that. So I saved up, and that's how I decided that, okay, I can give myself some time to really try this. But at the same time, another important thing I found was that also working on my mindset around money, that also helped me to just try to shift away from all these like scary thoughts of like, oh my god, what if I will like lose all my money, end up on the street. Like, I mean, sometimes like these thoughts can be quite
Yeah.
extreme. And so I found that together with just providing myself that financial cushion to be able to really try this, and at the same time also working through my own limiting beliefs around money, like I found that was actually very helpful.
Got it, Chenga. And did it come to a point where your savings was over, or you just managed to get to a point where you didn't really have to bother your savings?
Luckily, I didn't reach that extreme point. I do still have those moments when I worry about money more than at other moments, but I honestly think it is just something that is very human. That like sometimes you just have these days when you just worry about things more, and then the next day you're like, well, yeah, I actually work towards sustaining myself. So
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, let's talk about finding projects and finding clients. You said you signed up on a lot of communities. You were interacting with people. You got one gig through this training company and all that. How yes, on a high level it makes sense, but what are the things that you learned as you went? Let's say introducing the work that you do. What are the things that worked initially? What are the things that didn't? What are the adjustments you did? And finally, where are you at when it comes to communicating what you do and closing that project, bagging it completely, and kind of signing the deal?
Um, well, actually, I think I kind of came a long way in the sense that my work today is not really the work I did when I started. So when I started with the expat preparation trainings, or like this, so to say, classical cultural trainings, when you prepare someone who's moving to a different culture so that they can work and live in the different culture. But through also all the education that I did for myself and also the trainings that I did, I also realized that there's much more to culture training than this. And actually, the same dynamics that you can use for country differences can also be used for team cultures within organizations. So I also expanded my work quite a bit into that. And I also extended that, like, also my work to individuals, not just to organizations, which actually just happened quite recently. So through this whole process, because it took, yeah, this took some time. So it also didn't just happen from one day to the other. It took me like a year and a half to really just kind of find how I want to expand my work. I also tried different strategies of visibility. So also one thing which I found a bit overwhelming when I decided to just take the leap and do this, I started to read up about all, like how to do marketing and how to do content. And then, of course, there are so many things out there on the internet and so many, try this hack, try that hack. And I just found that so overwhelming
Right.
that it also took me some time to really think about, okay, how do I want to do this? How do I want my business to look like? How do I want to show up? How do I want to be visible? So like, it's really just the kind of clarity that really took me time to figure out.
Got it, Chenga. You spoke about marketing and the hacks that are the internet is filled up with. So far, from whatever you've tried, what are the things that have worked for you? What are the things that are total bullshit?
So I don't really believe in paid ads, at least not in my space. I do think it worked really well for if you have products to sell, or probably for other areas. But I think that for me, like, just putting money into showing up on platforms is not quite the thing I wanted to do. So basically, my approach was, and it still is, to just get active on LinkedIn, which I think is really the social media where probably most of the people who need my services, especially when it comes to team cultures, that's where they are. And really, what I believe in is that I share what I do. I also share my knowledge. So I also post a lot of educational content and a lot of like chunks of my work. So not just, the high level and not just the overview and not just describing that, oh yeah, like, I do these kind of trainings, like you have to sign up if you want to know more. But I also, like really share different exercises or different, reflection questions or whatever comes to my mind, to also make people see how that actually work or how that can create value. And I really just believe more in showing up organically, and then also try to create connections through that and connect with different people and have conversations. Because I'm also not very comfortable with just, hitting people with sales pitches, because I don't like it when it's being done to me. So I really just do believe more in showing what I do, showing how I do it, have conversations, and then see um, whether that's appealing or not. And it's also fine, because it's, not everybody has to like what I do, and that's completely okay.
Right. Got it, Chenga. Chenga, when it comes to finding new projects, you said what are some of the things that you do, and I'll come to the point where you applied the concept of helping people adjust to countries, from different countries to another country, where you kind of applied it to organizations and teams and also individuals. But before we talk about that, do you collaborate with other coaches in effort to probably find more projects? And even if not for finding projects, from what I've seen, A coach always is specialized about one topic, and then when you're conducting a workshop, a company or a corporate would rather want a combination of a lot of things, right? So how does this happen generally? uh, do one of I mean, first, my first question is, let's start with that. Do you collaborate with coaches, and if yes, how do you find coaches to
Yes, I
collaborate?
actually do. I really love collaboration, and I'm really not a competitive person, and especially in this field of cultural training, because we all work from our experience and we all come from different places. We went through different things, and we really approach the topic differently. Like, I honestly don't consider others who do the same as I do competitors in a way, because they have their own style and they offer, slightly different things. And because it's also very personal for everyone who attends these trainings or take these coaching, they all have different needs and they all want different approaches. And so we have, like, there are so many people with all kinds of different approaches that there's really someone for everyone. So I do like collaborating, and I'm quite lucky because the tools I work with, Global Disc and Growth Zone, so ICQ Global, who developed these tools, they actually also built a community of all the partners, and we are really from all over the world. Like, I think from, I don't know, we are more than 200 people from at least 60 countries, I think. So that's like quite a wide network. And they really do a great job at building a community out of us. So we also connect more with each other, and then we also help each other out. And then we can also take on these bigger projects, so we can actually serve companies from different angles. And as you said, it is true that yeah, like when you're alone, of course, there's only so much volume that you can take on. So that's why I also really like to join forces with others, so we can actually really help more.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, when it comes to collaboration, you said you do collaborate, and when it comes to corporate workshops, just for new people who are wondering, who do they talk to? How do you even get to know if a corporate has a requirement? Can you share a couple of examples of some of your best projects, or the biggest projects that you've done, biggest workshops you've done for corporates? How did you uh, find that there is that project available, and how long does it usually take to come to a conclusion, yes, you are signed to do that particular workshop?
So I think a lot of it, especially in my case, it came from networking and from connections, and that can take a very long time, because it's also the relationship that you're building with the people, which can be either the leader of the team or the HR person or the training manager, depending on the organization. And for me, it really just happened through that, to just knowing people, having conversations, telling them what I did. And after some time, they just came back that, oh yeah, we actually have this. So I think that's also part of the patience that I mentioned, that just acknowledging that, okay, you build these connections and sometimes you have to wait a very long time for them to actually come back. Because also, of course, the organizations also don't just, like, they can just get a training from one day to the other. They also have their own processes, they have their own, like, cycles and so on. So this is why I think it's also important to keep in mind that projects can take a long time to manifest.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, does your knowledge of different languages, which is four in your case, has that ever been a differentiator when you won some projects?
Hmm, maybe in a sense that I did do some trainings in English and in Spanish. So I think in the case of doing them in Spanish, it was definitely an advantage that I could do it in Spanish. Um, but overall, I mean, I do think it is a differentiator, because I don't think there are that many people who speak a lot of languages. But at the same time, also in my network, there are quite a few people who speak more languages. So that's why it's hard to answer this question a little bit, because I know a lot of people who work in different languages. So I don't feel necessarily that it's a differentiator if I look at them. But on the other hand, for someone who's not a part of this world, probably this is something that can be very helpful when it comes to choosing a trainer or choosing someone to work with, especially if their presence is in countries where I speak the language or where the person they choose speak the language.
Got it, Chenga. Um, I mean, I just asked that on behalf of people who may have been excited. Oh, you know what? Maybe if you know a lot of languages, you'll probably have an edge. But that doesn't seem to be the case, because a lot of people, it's common for a lot of people to know a lot of languages, at least from where, Chenga is around. Chenga, what I'm going to ask you now is, I was just going through the website, and then you kind of say in a one-liner that, I help people understand each other better. That's pretty much how you summarize your thing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
That's the
then,
short way of saying what I do.
yeah, it's a short way of saying what you do. And then there is also a place where you address uh, conflict between two groups or two people, which probably is what gives rise for another person to come in and help them with, right?
Yeah.
My question is this: just understanding each other, does it help, or does it take much more than that?
I mean, I do think if you have to work or live or, have regular interactions with that person, actually understanding really helps, because I think that's the strong first step to, after actually thrive in that relationship. Because when it comes to cultural differences, really what I tend to say as a first thing, that the most important thing to start out is just being aware, and also be aware of your own patterns and then your own cultural preferences and your own behaviors, because that is what actually helps you understand why you have that conflict with the other. Because cultural differences, in essence, they are value differences. So the moment you understand that, okay, I do value this thing, and then probably the other person has been saying that because he values or she values other things, there you shift this perspective, and then it just kind of moves into a different direction than if you just think that, oh my god, like I just don't understand what they are saying. They don't have any common sense, like I'm just talking to a wall, or these kind of things. So that's why I tend to say that actually understanding already where these differences can come from, it already helps dealing with a conflict or potential misunderstanding better.
Got it, Chenga. And Chenga, in being a coach that helps people understand each other, what is the role that you exactly play, or any coach should be playing, according to you?
That also depends a little bit whether I work with a team or an individual, although I think the common point is really that I help them get this awareness around where the differences come from. So this is also where the tools I work with are helpful, because they also help me show this person different communication preferences, different behavior preferences. And then, of course, I also tell them more about the underlying values. And so already understanding that, from there we can actually start talking about, like, okay, then how this situation can look differently, like what can you do to take the frustration out of it. And when it comes to teams, I also work with another tool that can measure and visualize psychological safety and motivation. So in the case of a team, uncovering this and also the cultural preferences and the cognitive diversity of the team can already be like a very powerful starting point to just measure the current situation, see where actually the conflicts or the misunderstanding come from, and then from there we can start working towards where they want to be, and to really untangle all these things and just kind of bring that wall down in a way.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, you use a couple of tools, or a few tools. Like, for example, there is something called as DISC, and then there is something called as growth zone and all that. I just saw that DISC is a 5-minute test that people can give, and then it gives out a report about their personality or whatever it is, maybe. Now, when you do coaching for teams, do you do this individually for everybody? And how much of that information do you or not use, while you're actually in the workshop coaching them? Is that where your understanding of the participants come from? And how exactly do you use this? Uh, in front of others?
So just one distinction I want to make. So it's called global disc. It's different than, like, disc is a very common test that is known in the corporate world. The global disc is different. So it does use the language of disc, so it kind of makes it easy to understand. But it's different from standard disc in the sense that it actually shows how people and why people think differently and behave differently. Because it shows you the what, and it also shows you the how, and it goes down to a value layer. So it also shows the why, which standard disk doesn't do. And through that, when it comes to a team, I do like to do this assessment with every single person, because then on a team level, this can also show the cognitive diversity of a team, which I think is a very powerful thing to know about the team. Also for me, when I prepare for the workshop, and also for the leader who is actually working with that team and the team itself. And yes, this is an assessment that I prefer to do with every single member, because it's something that helps their self-awareness to start with. And then after, when we all bring this all together, it also helps them understand the others better. And because they all go through this framework, then it's also easier to explain how these differences can manifest, because after that, they know this tool, they understand the how, they understand the why, they understand the value differences that are beyond all this. And then it's easier to start the conversation when they are all on the same page.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, I was also, while I was browsing your website, I had a chance to have a look at one of your videos. And, a lot of people mentioned this word, a safe space. For what, can you elaborate on why why is it called safe space? Because we're all adults and we know, it's a workshop that's being done there. Nobody's going to harm anybody. Why is there so much talk on safe space, and what are things that could be unsafe in a workshop like what you do?
I mean, I think in a workshop setting, like really setting a safe space is very important, because as you said, we are adults, we don't harm each other, but I don't think that's obvious. And I don't think it means the same thing for everyone. So that's why I like to start a training defining this safe space, because it can mean a very different thing for me than to another person or to a third person, because we all learn differently, we all perceive things differently. So I really like to just, have this common understanding that, okay, we're here to learn a certain thing or work on a certain topic. How do you want to do this? How do you, how can we make this the most valuable for you? How can you learn best? What kind of support, do you need? So I really do think that this is really crucial to set at the beginning, because then people can really feel safe. And we also have this like team collaboration guidelines, or like norms, or however you want to call it, that we can go back throughout the day or the week or however long the course is. If anybody ever feels that they are somehow not, not comfortable, or they're like one of their boundaries are kind of broken, or there's any kind of issue, we can always go back to this, that, okay, hang on, but we agreed that we are going to collaborate together this way or that way. So it's also, I really do think that it's a very strong team building exercise in a way. And I think it's just very helpful for participants, so that after they really don't have to worry about this, and they can really focus on the learning. And also in a team culture work context, I do talk a lot about psychological safety, which also kind of became a trending topic these last few years. Because when we work together and we work with a lot of stakeholders and with a lot of different people, we are looking also to have this kind of safe spaces where we really can, have open conversations, can actually commit mistakes and, not being crucified for them, but can actually, turn them into learning experiences, or just can openly say out loud that, okay, I need this kind of support, like who can help me? So I really do think that when it comes to working with others, especially when there are lots of differences involved, I really do think that creating this safe space, both in a learning context and psychological safety for a team, is really essential.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, what, according to you or in your experience, is the most recurring, theme or a problem that you see, when you're invited to conduct a workshop, for teams?
I think that this like lack of psychological safety, that's something that comes up often and in different ways. So for example, like I often hear that, oh yeah, there's like, so much silence, like nobody really speaks about anything or nobody speaks up. And while in some cases, like people would think that it's a good thing, because if nobody says anything, things are fine. But that actually can mean that people are just too afraid to speak up for whatever reason. So that is definitely something very common. And also like the clashes that come from different communication styles, which also of course goes back to all the value differences, like someone who's really direct and someone who's really indirect. If they are unaware of each other's preferences, like that can get very ugly very fast, and or very like they can get very hurt working with each other without having this kind of knowledge. So that's also something that comes up often. And then, of course, so the lack of psychological safety can also really manifest in a drop of motivation. Because if you're in an environment where like you cannot really speak up, or your ideas are being disregarded, or even if there are just too many meetings because there's no really clear priorities or clear directions, or you just constantly firefighting, like that, of course, also affects motivation, and that also tends to be a common issue.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, another question that I want to ask is how much of these corporates that hold these workshops between teams, how much of it is just a checkbox sort of a training because they have to complete a certain amount of trainings and certain amount of topics, or is it they really care and do they see that as a really pressing problem? Is that what is the difference in these two? Like, what's the percentage split? 50% of them are just checkbox trainings, 50% of them really care about it. Uh, how has it been in your experience? Has the majority of them cared about it?
So for the trainings I did, they did care, but I honestly think just seeing research really, because I mean, obviously I don't know all the companies in the world, so it's very hard to, say a realistic percentage here, but like the research really shows kind of the opposite. Like the research really shows that at many places, this is still a tick box exercise, or they still want to stay on the surface, or they really just want to do a training because they have to do it, but they don't really want to do the work which is behind it. Because obviously, like I love to do these workshops, but it's not it won't be a band-aid. It won't just solve everything magically. Like it also
Right,
means that
right.
after things will need to happen to really change this. And sadly, what I see from the different reports, there are still quite a few places where this is really just seen as a tick box exercise.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, another thing that I want to touch upon is how, I mean, the workshop, the problems that you're dealing with are not simple problems, right? They're all deep rooted psychological problems, and a workshop of 4 days a week is not going to really fix things. What is the solution to it? And does repetitive workshop sessions about the same topic does it help? Or once you finish the workshop, do you get away from there, or do you move on by giving them like follow-up work? Is it a continuous process? Can this workshop that you do, has it ever been a continuous process where you assess or you're available over some sort of communication to assist the participants even after the workshop is completed?
Yeah, so it definitely can be a process. So as I said, the workshop is a great start, but then the team really
It's
needs
just a
to
start.
put
Workshop is
in.
just a
Yeah,
start.
exactly. It is a start. Like I give them the solid basics. I give them,
Right.
the data from the assessments they do, so they really see clearly where the issues are. But then they really need to also put in their part to it, and really yeah work on it themselves. But there are actually tools that they can use to do this. So also the assessments I work with come with a thing called Quest, which is basically an interactive platform that gives different challenges. So both Global Disc and Growth Zone has this feature. Global Disc is meant for individuals. So it's, based on your preferences, it gives you 21 different challenges that help you really flex your mindset and understand differences. And it's meant for individuals, but actually you can also do it easily in a group. Like, you get together every some time and then, discuss the differences. And it's especially interesting when team members have different preferences, and then of course they have different challenges. So it's kind of nice to talk about that and just to see the outcome. And also Growth Zone has a quest which is actually meant for the team. So it's something that they really have to work on together. And so I do tend to recommend taking that, and then of course forming an accountability group so they really discuss through these things. And then based on that, it will also feel easier to know what actions to take and how to implement all this knowledge and how to build up a team culture that they can really be comfortable in. And then of course, yes, this is a process and it takes time, but I do think it's really worth it, because then, all these like underlying problems can be just either solved or just like kind of dialed down.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, probably, I'll conclude with this question to you. How do you, you said research shows, different data or different things about how it's still largely a checkbox activity for a lot of corporates. Um, I like to believe personally that as a world, no matter how much negative information comes on our internet feed, I think on a big picture, we are continuing to improve in a lot of various ways. And that's kind of been my way of looking at things. Do you think, despite a lot of corporates still looking at some of these trainings as just checkbox or whatever it is, do you think big picture we are getting to a space where all these things will change and it will become very much, a very important part as part of workplaces, where people really bother about, working in a nicer atmosphere, taking these workshops seriously, and probably not stopping at just the workshop and continuing with a process where it becomes a weekly work or an everyday work even. Do you see that happening?
I would say yes. I mean, also similar to you, I'm quite optimistic about this, because I do think that like corporate structures are how they are, and like some tendencies are not that promising, but at the bottom of it, they're always humans. And I do think that there are so many humans who are just, really interested about, just making the environment or the workplace or, just the atmosphere better in general. So I do think that at some point, this will have to shift, because if you just keep this as a tick box exercise, then like people will leave from your company. You will see a lot of the KPIs and all the numbers will drop eventually, because this is not sustainable. So I think there really will, like, a point will come where a shift will need to happen, because also people are now realized, especially after the pandemic, that we can do things differently and we should do things differently, because, well, yeah, clearly the old systems are not really working. So I am actually quite hopeful, just like you, that yes, there will be a shift, and companies will start taking this seriously, because yeah, on one hand, of course, there are a lot of damage that the lack of like collaboration and psychological safety and trust can do. But also on the other hand, like other side of this, if you actually have happy employees and you have psychological safety and trust, like also the numbers start go up. So then productivity grows, like everything starts to grow. So I do think that there will be a shift.
Got it, Chenga. Thank you. Probably just one last question, right?
Go for it.
Again, related to corporates looking at it just as a tick box thing. When as a coach, it could probably be like that, but obviously the corporates are not going to let you know that, hey, what we're just doing is a checkbox thing. How demotivating can it be, and how do you keep yourself motivated and take it seriously to still go and give your best as a coach?
It can be demotivating, and it's also we're coming back to that frustration, when you just like feel that, oh yeah, like I really have like something valuable, and like I know this can work, and there's still this reluctance. Like it can be quite quite demotivating. But at the same time, I also, I really talk to a lot of people and a lot of groups who are actually like very committed to really getting better and really changing and really just, being a better version of themselves and creating a better world at large. So I think that gives me so much motivation that in a way that kind of outlies the other side.
Got it, Chenga. Chenga, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you for being very candid about, your entire journey. Just the way the way you shared about exactly how you underwent, your periods of frustration, or maybe, the time that it took for you to, get into the new role and stuff like that. Thank you so very much. It was extremely valuable. Chenga.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was really, I'm very happy to be able to be here, and hopefully it helps to some of the listeners and inspire them to jump on this journey, because I do think it's worth it.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Chenga.